Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Around the Nation right here, TYT Nation. I'm your host, Jeff Waldorf. Got a great show for you guys today. Happy Friday. Oh my God, we made it through another week. And what a week it has been, starting out with the Mueller indictments, and then going to, of course, the DNC, Donna Brazil. Just an amazing week, full of crazy news, and it does not stop. We've got more, of course, on the Brazil story. We also have an interesting story or I should say when it comes to the unions. So very interesting. I actually became aware of this story thanks to Aggressive Progressives, Jimmy Dore, Steve-O, and I wanted to talk about it myself. Then we've got Donald Trump doing classic distraction moves to try to get everybody to stop thinking about his corruption. I'm going to go over that. Then we've got an admission by Trump on why he's decided not to staff the State Department. Awesome. Then we've got Mueller going after Jared Kushner, and is Kushner, of course, the next one to be pushed out in the Trump administration. It's very interesting. And then, of course, along that same lines, we're going to be talking about Betsy DeVos. So, a lot of interesting stuff today on today's show. So, stay with me. Holy crap. I'm just seeing I'm not sure how much that is, but wow. Nicholas Miller, thank you so much for that super chat. That is, wow. Thank you so much. You guys are amazing. Look, I have the best audience in the world. So I just want to let everybody know that. You guys are amazing, okay? So I love all you guys. You're what keep the show going. And I love doing the show for you guys every 5 days a week. You're amazing. So thank you so much, Nicholas Miller. That's awesome. So, okay. Speaking of people who help out the show as well, I want to give some patrons here. Let's see. Read a couple of patrons that I haven't read out before. Or at least I'm going to try to find people that I haven't read out before. But there's so many of you awesome people that I can't always keep track. But here's somebody that I have read before, the first storm and the last. So regular in the chat room and a regular, of course, contributor on Patreon. Thank you so much, First Storm. And then let's find some other people that I have not mentioned before. It'd be really interesting if, or really nice if I could actually do this ahead of time, but I don't. Normally I'm spending the very last minute getting all the show ready, so I go up to the wire, man. But I do want to thank Francis Carroll. Thank you, Francis. And finally, what is it? Hold. Let me find someone who hasn't, who I haven't given a shout out to. Where are you? All right. Well, look, I thank everybody who donates to us and keeps the show going. Patreon.com/TYTNation. Or, of course, there's the super chat. Again, thank you so much, Nicholas, for using the super chat. That helps out. All right. Okay. So, another way to help the show without, if you don't have any resources to help it, that's okay. There are other ways that you can help us out, and that's by sharing, simply giving us a like and a share on YouTube. So that helps out with our engagement, brings in new people. So that's another way to help out. All right. With all that, let's get to the stories. That's what you're here for. Okay. Now, Politico recently released an excerpt from Donna Brazil's new book, which basically confirms that Hillary Clinton had, without a doubt, rigged the 26th primary against Bernie Sanders and in her favor, working together with, of course, other people inside the DNC, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who had to resign in absolute disgrace. So when this was revealed, the internet was lit on fire. Millions of Bernie Sanders supporters felt like, yes, finally, vindication. This is stuff that we already knew. This is stuff that we've said all along, that it just wasn't a fair contest, that Bernie Sanders didn't actually get a fair shot. Now, it wasn't just Bernie Sanders that didn't get a fair shot, by the way. Nobody had a fair shot. So everybody else that ran against her, that included, you know, Martin O'Malley, Jim Webb, Lincoln Chafee. If you were a fan of Lincoln Chafee, if you were feeling the chafe, then, well, you also got screwed out of your shot. So, because it was so incredibly unfair. So, this is, I mean, she controlled the party. She controlled the money. Now, of course, a lot of that is like, oh, well, she basically gave all this money to the DNC, took it out of President Obama's bankruptcy, which is actually very, very interesting because President Obama was taking a very, very long time to pay off the debts. Hillary Clinton stepped in. Her campaign is like, okay, we're going to loan you the money so you can actually be able to function, but we get full control of the party's finances. So that's what happened. Of course, she had control over the staff, over the expenditures, and then set up her own sort of legal fundraising scheme that took money from state parties. Now, this was much needed much needed money that would have helped out people who were also on the ballot, these down ballot Democrats. It actually took money from the state parties and funneled it right into her campaign. Okay. Not only that, but this agreement was signed about a year before Clinton actually became the nominee. Now, it's standard practice that once you become the nominee, then you can get full control. But this happened way, way before then. So that's what made it especially shady. Basically, through this deal, the DNC was saying, Hillary Clinton is our nominee. All this, this entire nominating process is just a formality. We have already coronated Queen Hillary, and she is our nominee. Even though, oh, look, we've got this guy, Bernie Sanders is running. We've got other people who are running for this nomination anyway. We don't care about that. Hillary Clinton's got all the superdelegates. Hillary Clinton's got all the advantages because that's who we want. This was preordained. Okay. So now with that established, and that is fact, this is coming from Donna Brazil, the insider of insiders, who ran the DNC as interim chair. And not only that, but she was a big Hillary Clinton supporter. When she was a contributor at CNN, she passed off debate questions to the Clinton campaign. There was no doubt that she had a bias towards Hillary Clinton. And even yet, she looked at this corruption and was like, okay, that's too much for me. This was a rigged contest. So, with all that, like I said, established, Elizabeth Warren decided to weigh in on the matter. And she was talking to Jake Tapper about it. And what Tapper's going to do, he's going to give some context. And then he's going to ask Warren some questions about this and how she feels about these new revelations. Let's take a look.
We learned today from former Democratic National Committee Chairwoman Donna Brazil that the Clinton campaign, in her view, did rig the presidential nominating process by entering into an agreement to control day-to-day operations at the DNC. The Clinton campaign controlling the party's staffing, strategy, finances, communications, and that agreement was entered into in August 2015, a year before she defeated Senator Bernie Sanders. This must shock you.
Look, this is a real problem. But what we've got to do as Democrats now is we've got to hold this party accountable. When Tom Perez was first elected chair of the DNC, the very first conversation I had with him is to say, you have got to put together a Democratic Party. in which everybody can have confidence that the party is working for Democrats rather than Democrats are working for the party. And he's being tested now. This is a test for Tom Perez. And either he's going to succeed by bringing Bernie Sanders and Bernie Sanders representatives into this process, and they're going to say it's fair, it works, we all believe it, or he's going to fail. And I very much hope he succeeds. I hope for Democrats everywhere. I hope for Bernie and for all of Bernie's supporters that he's going to succeed.
Very quickly, Senator, do you agree with the notion that it was rigged?
Yes.
Okay, well, that's pretty simple. Do you agree that it's rigged? Absolutely. Now, before I get into more of that, I do want to talk about Tom Perez, right? Tom Perez, she says, well, it's a test. Tom Perez has already failed the test. What he's done since taking over as DNC chair is he's done a failed tour with Bernie Sanders. And it wasn't Bernie Sanders the one that failed. It was Tom Perez. Every time Bernie Sanders would go on, the crowd would cheer enthusiastically for him. Tom Perez gets on stage, he gets booed. People were not in favor of Tom Perez. He was basically President Obama's pick to make sure that the DNC stays in the hands of the establishment. So, you know, Perez, he's already, if there's a test, he's already failed it. I mean, under his leadership, he has filled the DNC with Hillary Clinton supporters, people who are supporters of the establishment, put them in charge of the money. Now, that's very, very important because nobody has access, except for Tom Perez and maybe one other person, to the DNC's finances. Gee, I wonder why. Maybe they'll find out, as we did yesterday, thanks to Donna Brazile coming out and saying, when we looked at the finances, we realized that we're spending so much money on the consultants, the Democratic consultants that get paid whether or not the Democrats win or lose elections. So they get paid and they're overpaid. So now in the new DNC under Tom Perez, he made sure that nobody else gets access. Why? Because they're still paying those consultants. They're going to get paid one way or the other. So as I said before, Tom Perez, if this is a test, he has absolutely failed. He has not changed the DNC, and under his leadership, the DNC is imploding. Not so good. Okay. Now, as far as, yes, Elizabeth Warren's like, yeah, absolutely, she did. Hillary Clinton did rig the primary process in her favor with help, as I said, from the DNC. Bernie Sanders was promised a fair race. He did not get that fair race, and therefore he didn't lose fair and square. Neither did Martin O'Malley, neither did Lincoln Chafee. They all got screwed. Now, they also say, though, and interestingly enough, I've seen this argument. I kind of dipped my toe last night in the fever swamps of Bernie Sanders hate on Twitter. Never fun. I don't recommend actually doing that because you will get frustrated and you'll pull out your hair. Luckily for me, I don't really have any. So the arguments, of course, are like, he wouldn't have won anyway. I mean, not only that, but, oh, thank goodness for Hillary Clinton saving the DNC from bankruptcy. She bought it. She didn't save it because she wanted to save the DNC because she believed in it. No, she gave all that money so she could take control and ensure her coronation. It's insane, but they would love to rationalize all of this stuff, and that's exactly what they're trying to do, and they're working overtime to do that. So thank goodness for Donna Brazile actually coming out and proving that this contest was completely unfair, something that we had already suspected for a very, very long time and had a lot of evidence of. Now, I don't understand her motivation, but at this point, I don't think that's all that important. And interestingly enough, now she's being attacked by Hillary Clinton supporters, which is ironic at best, because she is a Hillary Clinton supporter, a diehard Hillary Clinton supporter. And now she's like getting attacked by people for actually coming out for the truth. And I've also seen attacks against Elizabeth Warren, some rather vile attacks, to be honest with you. I've seen memes of her of supposed liberals, Democrats, saying that, calling her Pocahontas. Now, that's the smear Donald Trump came up with to go after Elizabeth Warren. And now we're having Democrats use that smear against Elizabeth Warren. That's insane. All for coming out and saying what is absolutely proven to be true. Now, I know that there are some of you out here on the left, some viewers of mine, that are like, but what took you so long to actually come out and admit this, Elizabeth Warren? We have been saying this forever. And if you're asking that, I understand. I get it. That's a good question. I think that she's just really bad at politics. I mean, maybe ulterior motives. Maybe I want to get elected or reelected and I didn't want to go against Hillary Clinton. Either way, she's really bad at politics, but she's actually really good on policy. And I think that's what us progressives wants. That's what we want. We want good policy. Okay. So I want to give her credit for being honest. I want to give her credit for calling it out. And I want to give Donna Brazile credit for also calling it out. They deserve some of that credit for bucking the Clinton machine, which is not easy. It still holds a lot of power in Democratic circles. However, there is, I think, an angle that a lot of people haven't been talking about. These defections, if you want to call it that, I should say, I think they do signal that maybe there is now a weakening of the hold that the Clintons have on the Democratic Party. And if that's true, then that's a really good sign for those of us who are focused on taking it back, taking the DNC and taking the Democratic Party back away from the Clintons and putting it back into the hands of the people. Okay. That's all on that. Let's go into the unions. I know those of you who are not interested in changing the party, you might actually really like this news as well. Two of America's labor unions just decided to buck the two-party system. Now, this is according to an article written by John Wachsik and Mark Greinbergst. I'm sorry that I probably butchered your name, guys, but it's a great article. Now, according to them, the AFL-CIO, it's one of the biggest unions, passed a political resolution at the end of October that calls for, quote, a break with the lesser of two evil politics. So you guys who are for the People's Party, you're going to love this article. He said the time has passed. The resolution says the time has passed when we can passively settle for the lesser of two evils, reads the main political resolution. Lee Saunders, chair of the AFL-CIO's political committee and president of the AFSCME, and Randy Weingarten, president of the American Federation of Teachers, introduced the resolution. Now, these people are leading two of the largest unions. So that's very, very interesting. Okay, so let's talk about Randy Weingarten for a second, right? So head of the teachers union. Now, if you recall, back during the election, during the primary, they were a big Hillary Clinton supporter, right? His union, without the approval of its membership, by the way, just with the board, and we saw this with quite a few large, important unions, the boards, the unelected boards, would go and just say, okay, we don't care what our members think, we're going to endorse Hillary Clinton. When you ask the membership, however, a lot of them were like, no, we're in favor of Bernie Sanders. We do not agree with the board of our union. So that's very important, right? Now you have this guy. Now you have Randy Weingarten saying, hey, you know what? Maybe this lesser of two evils thing that I previously bought into, maybe I don't agree with it. Maybe it doesn't really work after all. That right there is an interesting evolution, if it is an evolution, but you know what? I'll take it. So here's where it gets really interesting. Now, convention managers also yoked the resolution to another measure it also approved, discussing a labor party, a new political party based on labor. Wow. Weingarten said, "For decades, the political system has failed working people. Acting on behalf of corporations and the rich and the powerful, the political system's been taking away, one after another, the pillars that support working people's right to good jobs and secure benefits." The two measures, adopted October 24th, follow a late Monday evening meetings of supporters of reviving the Labor Party idea, which attracted about 50 delegates to an upstairs meeting room at the convention's Lead Hotel. Their contention, both the Democrats and Republicans are under total corporate domination. Holy hell. That is some strong language there. They're not mincing words, and they're absolutely right. Right now, both parties depend too much on corporate money to function. Our politicians spend about 4 to 6 hours a day begging for campaign donations from rich people and corporations. That is not the kind of system that we should live in. These people and these corporations and these businessmen set up super PACs and dark money groups so they can funnel legal bribes from multinational corporations into political campaigns. Now, nobody gives to a political campaign unless they're going to get something back out of it, unless they're going to get their return on investment. And that's what it's all about. And so because of that, neither party is interested in unions. It's interested in labor rights. Well, they can't go with the labor rights because they've got their corporate donors, and their corporate donors hate unions. They're like, no. If we have strong unions, we can't crush our workers. That's what this is about. Now, I remember a time, or at least I remember reading about a time, where Republicans actually used to believe in unions. And until more recently, so did the Democrats. However, and I think part of the reason that they did lip service, at least to the Democrats, is that the unions do fund Democrats. However, unions don't fund Democrats nearly as much as the corporations now do. So that's why the Democrats are unfortunately under corporate control. So these unions, they notice that. They know they're not being represented. For example, President Obama said, you know what, I'm going to put on my walking shoes and I'm going to walk the picket lines if they try to do right to work. Well, what happened? They did right to work in Wisconsin. He wasn't there. They did right to work in Michigan. President Obama wasn't there. The Democrats, they weren't there. There were a few prominent Democrats that did join the picket lines. Bernie Sanders, for example, even though that technically he's not a Democrat, but he caucuses with them and is an actual progressive. But as far as other Democrats have gone, no. They're not interested in unions. They're not interested in labor rights. So these unions, now that they know that the Democrats are not on their side, they're packing it up and they're looking at creating a brand new party that actually represents workers. And that's amazing. Now, the prime mover, according to the article, of a Labor Party motion at the convention, Postal Workers President Mark Dimenstein, has been calling for such a new formation since the passage of NAFTA in 1993. So this guy, as soon as NAFTA passed, he's like, Ralph Nader was right. There's going to be a giant sucking sound. The Democrats pushed us through. Well, the Democrats are no longer on our side. We were against this because guess what? This is going to lead to an outsourcing of a lot of American jobs down to Mexico. And what happened? That's exactly what happened. These American jobs went to Mexico where there is cheaper labor costs. That's partly thanks to NAFTA. So when that happened, of course, Dimenstein is like, no. We're out of here. Like, I'm not gonna back a party that doesn't back us. I would like to create a new labor party, which he said showed because he said that Democrats and Republicans were now in the pockets of the corporate class. And that's, of course, thanks to Bill Clinton and the DLC Democrats. So he got into office and he was like, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to make the Democrats more centrist, i.e. more corporatist. We're going to go and take all that corporate money and we're going to deregulate industry and we're not going to help the unions. That's what he did. Now, Diamondstein made many of the same arguments for a Labor Party in the convention floor that he voiced in the meeting the night before. When Baldemar Vasquez of the Farm Labor Organizing Committee and Mark Dudzik of Labor Committees for Single Payer, and Donna DeWitt, former president of the South Carolina AFL-CIO, joined him. So he's got a lot of big names in organized labor. Now, meeting participants differed over whether the nascent party should first build an organization and concentrate on issues, or immediately jump into political races, running the risk of becoming spoilers in the current political system, rigged in favor of the two existing parties. Now, for me, like, if you ask me, I would say go for organization and issues. You're not going to be able to take on the establishment unless you have a good organization behind you. I don't care about being a spoiler. I mean, if you think about it, Bernie Sanders was in the Democratic Party. He joined the Democratic Party to run in 2016. He was still considered a spoiler. No matter what, if you run against the establishment-favored candidate, you will always be considered a spoiler. That's just how they think. So if you run against the system, you're not going to be able to avoid that charge. So again, I say concentrate on the issues. Develop a real working people's platform, and then build that money base from small donations. You know, get yourself out there and then start running and challenging corporate politicians. And if you do that, who knows, you might at least force the candidate who is part of the establishment to start to tack left on some issues. And that would be great, because that's what you want to do, is you want to force these politicians to start going left. And if you win, that's even better. Now, in addition to this, there was another meeting with Our Revolution. Now, that's, of course, the Sanders group that's pushing for electing more progressive candidates. Now, the unions called that meeting, with Our Revolution, were the Amalgamated Transit Union, the American Postal Workers Union, the Brotherhood of Maintenance Way Employees, and the Communications Workers for America, the International Longshore and Warehouse Union, National Nurses United, and the United Electrical Workers, and they were joined by the Massachusetts and South Carolina AFL-CIOs. So let me just point out the Nurses Union, right? So in any labor movement or protest, we have seen the Nurses Union because they're awesome. And I want to point out just how much I love the Nurses Union. I mean, again, these were the biggest backers of Bernie Sanders. And the leader, Roseanne DeMauro, of course, she's absolutely amazing. So, as well as the rest of the nurses. These people, they heal people in real life, but they also want to heal the government. And I think that's amazing. And I just love them. Now, continuing. Okay. So I know, look, some of you that are watching might despise unions. That's because, of course, there's been a pretty successful campaign against them by the far right and the corporate Democrats. They don't like unions, and they've tried to convince a lot of Americans that unions are just bad, which sucks. So, I mean, and look, they do point out some excesses. I mean, there are some unions that I disagree with. There were ones that were pushing the Keystone XL pipeline, of course. I didn't agree with that. There were some that were pushing the other pipeline, Standing Rock. Didn't agree with them either. And then there's the police union, which is big on excess. But nonetheless, I do believe in unions, and I don't believe that they should be eliminated like what the right wing is trying to actually do. We need strong unions more than ever in order to fight the corporate control of the workplace and actually give workers a voice. And look, should we clamp down on excesses? Of course, of course. But the reality is that they're not nearly as powerful as they used to be. Actually, their power has completely diminished. And all you need to do is just look at the decline of unions. Union membership is down, union power is down, union donations are down. Union membership is not what it used to be. And I think a lot of it is because of these union busting laws and the fact that some people will point to certain cases of excess, or, oh, this employee is lazy and they didn't get fired, therefore all unions are bad because the union happens to be protecting that one person. Well, that doesn't... those bad things do not take away the good that the unions actually have done for America. I mean, since the unions have been busted, have been losing power, the middle class has been losing income. Wages have been stagnant. Benefits are no longer there. They're non-existent in a lot of cases. And corporate power has grown exponentially. So there's a big, big problem. When unions are strong, the economy is strong. When unions are weak, then a lot of this money, a lot of this power flows to the CEOs and the corporate executives. Now, I don't have a problem with people who are CEOs. I don't have a problem with executives. But what I do have a problem is a disparity of power in the workplace. The workers should also have power. They should be able to get together and negotiate for fairer wages, an honest day's wage for an honest day's work. Knowing how CEOs and companies are, they're going to want to cut costs as much as they can so that more money ends up in their pocket. That's not a problem, but they should have a balancing force out there to make sure that the workers are fairly compensated as well. I want to make sure that everybody does well in the workplace, the bosses and the workers. That should be a goal, and that is one of the goals of having unions. So a strong economy has to include labor rights. Workers have to have a voice in the workplace. And unfortunately, that voice has been ignored and stifled by people belonging to both parties. And now they realize it, and finally they're actually going to do something about it. This is a big deal. Labor is actually finally planning a comeback in a big way. So hopefully they can get this this Labor Party off the ground, and we'll see what happens. I wish them all the luck in the world. Okay. So let's go to Trump's denial. Now, yesterday, Donna Brazile revealed the fact that Hillary Clinton had rigged the primary against Bernie Sanders. It didn't take long for President Trump to decide to pile on, as if, of course, he didn't have anything better to do because it's not like he's president, right? Oh, right, he is. He actually has a job to do. But on Twitter, of course, President Trump went on a tweeting rampage. He tweeted, "Everybody is asking why the Justice Department and FBI isn't looking to all the dishonesty going on with crooked Hillary and the Dems." Everybody's asking, are you sure? I'm pretty sure that nobody's asking except for you. Just saying, a lot of the Democrats are like, look, man, we know, or I should say a lot of the Bernie Sanders supporters know that the DNC is corrupt and we actually need to do something about it. Now, there are some people who are like, well, let's forget about the DNC and let's go somewhere else. Let's create a people's party. And I'm fine with that. I don't necessarily agree with that approach, but I can agree that we could use an inside-outside approach. Build a party from the outside, and then to try and push the DNC left while you infiltrate and overtake the party from the inside. That's my whole idea, but again, you can disagree, and that's fine. But here's the thing, right? The corporate Dems, as we know, are incredibly shady, but the fact is that right now that should not be the focus. The problem is our system of money, which is the real the real source of the corruption. Our ability to go and have a system that is built on taking outside money to run elections, that is far bigger of a problem than anything that's going on right now. Money is the root of all evil. It is the root of our corruption. And if we actually do want to fix the system, then we would go after that, instead of going after the people who use that system to their advantage and focusing solely on that. Now he goes on. New Donna B book says she paid for and stole the Dem primary, which is true, as I said. But then he adds, what about the deleted emails, uranium, Podesta, the server, plus, dot, dot, dot. Look, I know what he's doing. I don't think he cares about any of those issues. What it is like, hey, look over there. Don't pay attention to me. Don't pay attention to how close Mueller is going. I mean, look, he's got people in his inner circle under investigation now. That includes Jared Kushner now. Or at least he's being targeted by Mueller. And then you have Manafort and Gates that were just indicted. And then you've got Carter Page, who can't seem to shut his mouth. And then you have Papadopoulos, who's been feeding information to Mueller ever since he got arrested. He's nervous. And I was like, hey, look at Crooked Hillary. Look at Crazy Bernie. Oh, I can't believe how they screwed over Crazy Bernie. Well, first of all, if you actually cared about what happened to Bernie Sanders, maybe you wouldn't call him crazy. Just saying, it's a gigantic tell. When he starts using those names that he makes up, he's like, oh, I can't believe what they did to Crazy Bernie. You can't just call him Bernie. See, it gives you away. It shows that you really don't care about what happened, but all you care about is, hey, I'm going to distract you. Let's talk about something else. Let's talk about anything else other than the Mueller investigation. Please. Again, what Hillary Clinton did was completely unfair. It was obvious corruption. Okay? And again, it was inexcusable. I don't understand how that there are Democrats out there that are actually defending this. It's ridiculous. But weirdly enough, thanks to our political system and the way that money is in politics is set up, it's actually not illegal. So keep that in mind. Completely unethical? Absolutely. Illegal? Sadly, under our system, not. Okay. And the other thing is, why should we focus completely on Hillary Clinton when she's not president? That's the other question here. But anyway, then he hold. Been having a cough last few days. Okay. God damn. Okay. So later on, he decides to tweet, the real story on collusion is in Donna B's book. Crooked Hillary bought the DNC and then stole the Democratic primary from Crazy Bernie. Again, that is different from allegedly colluding with a foreign government. Those two things are both corrupt, but it's not the same. It's not the same level. But again, it just shows that he is trying to completely distract. And look, a lot of people are still very, very angry over the what happened, right? With the DNC. I'm actually not angry anymore. I'm going to tell you why. It's because I already knew this, and I already went through all those stages of anger all the way back in the primary when we first suspected something was going on. So at this point, I'm like, okay, look, I'm not angry anymore. I actually want to fix it. I want to fix this corruption. I want to make it so that this will never, ever happen again. Okay. Again, what Hillary and the DNC did, complete and clear corruption. But thankfully, we're going to come up with a plan to kick out the corporate Democrats and to make sure that this doesn't happen again. And that would involve, of course, getting the money out of politics. But, of course, we can't forget, while we're talking about what the DNC did, is that Trump is also incredibly corrupt. We can't excuse his corruption just because the DNC also happens to be corrupt. This is why nobody wanted Hillary versus Trump. I mean, look, these are two terrible choices. Now, he also went off Twitter to talk to reporters before his Asia trip, and he said, quote, I'm really not involved with the Justice Department. I'd like to let it run itself. But honestly, they should be looking at the Democrats. They should be looking at Podesta and all that dishonesty. They should be looking at a lot of things. A lot of people are disappointed in the Justice Department, including me. Well, we already know how disappointed you are in Jeff Sessions. Just saying. But as far as Podesta, they are looking at Podesta. They're actually looking at Tony Podesta, who was a lobbyist who did the same thing that Paul Manafort had done, allegedly. He is also under investigation by Robert Mueller. Now, did you mean Tony Podesta, or did you mean John Podesta? Interesting. Now, I don't know of John Podesta actually doing anything, but we do know of Tony Podesta, John's brother, of course, like I said, working and doing the same thing as Manafort, lobbying on behalf of a foreign power and not actually saying that he was lobbying. So there's that. Now, he also said that, again, Ms. Clinton stole the Democratic primary and said that there was a major violation of campaign finance laws and money laundering. But see, that's the problem here, as I keep going back to, that's the system. It's completely illegal. It's completely legal thanks to people who are conservatives, who actually want more money in politics. I mean, look at McCutcheon versus the FEC. That actually loosened the rules even more on how much money you could give to candidates. And then you have Citizens United, who set up these super PACs and dark money groups. And then you can go back even further with the decisions that made money in speech and that asserted that corporations are people with speech rights. Those speech rights, of course, are to give money to political candidates. So if you want to solve those problems, if you actually cared about the corruption, then you would start railing against those decisions. But you're not. What you're doing, what Trump is doing, is he's trying to use this as a shield to mask from his own corruption. He has embraced the money in politics. And he has embraced that complete corruption. He continues to say, at some point, the Justice Department and the FBI must do what is right and proper. Now, that's where it runs into legal problems. Again, he's the president of the United States, and he's saying, hey, Justice Department, look into my political opponent. The New York Times reports it is extremely unusual for a sitting president to publicly badger his Justice Department to investigate a political opponent. But Mr. Trump has consistently tried to deflect attention away from the Russia investigation by suggesting Democrats should also be the subject of federal inquiries. Mr. Trump had previously called on the Justice Department to investigate Mrs. Clinton. This week, he repeated those requests and called for the death penalty for a suspect in a recent terrorist attack in New York, even as he acknowledged on Thursday that presidents are actually not supposed to insert themselves into federal investigations. He said, but you know, the saddest thing is that because I'm president of the United States, I am not supposed to be involved with the Justice Department. I'm not supposed to be involved with the FBI. I'm not supposed to be doing the kinds of things that I would love to be doing, and I'm very frustrated by it. To be honest, I'll be honest, I'm very unhappy with it, that the Justice Department isn't going. Now, maybe they are, but you know, as president, and I think you understand this, as president, you are not supposed to be involved in that process, but hopefully they're doing something, and at some point, maybe we're all going to have it out. So he's very frustrated. It's like, come on, FBI, why are you not looking into my political opponent? Why are you only looking into my corruption? Hey, Trump, if you're feeling so powerless, then perhaps maybe you should step down, and then you can do anything you want. You can log into the investigation. You can go on Fox News and say anything about the Justice Department like you used to. Hell, do as many investigations into Hillary as you want, as long as you quit. You know what you're going to find? You're going to find that Hillary Clinton's corrupt. Wow. We already knew that. What he's doing right now is he's possibly doing obstruction of justice. In fact, Representative Jim Hines, Democrat from Connecticut, said that interfering with an investigation could be dangerous. He said, quote, because we easily drift, let's be clear, in a democracy, the president does not demand law enforcement go after his political foes. Ever. But see, here's the thing. Trump, he's not savvy enough. He's not smart enough to understand that. He's a bull, and our democracy is a china shop. He's going to break whatever he can break, as long as it gets attention away from his own scandals. And that is the problem. We've got to get him out. I know. We got to get them out, but we also have to reform, to do massive reform of the DNC. We got to get rid of all the corporate Democrats. We got to replace them with progressives. Also, we can get rid of the Trumps of the world, and then finally take on the Republicans and kick their asses at the ballot box. That's the whole point. Okay, I need to take a quick break here. So, stay right here. We'll be back. We've got more stories. So, make sure to stay with us. All right, welcome back to the show. Around the Nation right here, TYT Nation. Jeff Waldorf with you. Please give us a like and a share if you haven't already. You guys are awesome. Again, thank you to everybody who's in the chat room right now and who's watching at home. You're amazing. And thank you very, very much for your support. All right. We got more stories, so let's do this. All right. Now, President Trump so far has refused to properly staff the State Department. Now, that also includes Rex Tillerson, who has also not properly staffed the State Department. Now, like I said, that is under the leadership of Secretary of State Rex Tillerson. But for how much longer, we're not really sure. Now, look, I understand that Republicans don't like government, right? They don't really care about staffing agencies. But those things are actually kind of important. You may want to make sure to have enough staff so that you can get things done. Now, it is true that Democrats do block certain nominees. That happens in every administration when you change over. And I get that, right? Still, that's actually not why a majority of these positions are still going unfilled about a year after Trump's election. Now, during an interview on Fox News, Trump gave the real reason for why many of these seats went unfilled. Let's take a look.
Your State Department still has some unfilled positions. Are you worried that the State Department doesn't have enough Donald Trump nominees in there to push your vision through? Because other State Departments, including Reagan's at times, undermined his agenda. And there is a concern that the State Department currently is undermining your agenda.
So we don't need all the people that they want. You know, don't forget, I'm a business person, and I tell my people, well, you don't need to fill slots, don't fill them. But we have some people that I'm not happy with their
But
thinking
Assistant
process.
Secretary of State, you're not getting rid of that position.
But let me tell you, the one that matters is me. I'm the only one that matters, because when it comes to it, that's what the policy is going to be. You've seen that. You've seen it strongly.
You've seen that. You've seen that strongly. The only thing that matters is me. That doesn't even make sense. What policy? What have we seen strongly? I don't understand. What does that even mean? Our president's a child. Oh, look. No, I'm the one who's important. I'm the president. Yeah, you are the president, somehow. But guess what? Other people also matter. You need people to actually do the work. Are you going and doing the work of the State Department? No, you're not. You're sitting on your ass watching television or playing golf. You need to actually appoint some people to fill the positions, because those positions are important. I shouldn't have to explain it to you, but for some reason, I do. You're the president. Act like it. I know. That's never going to happen. Now, during that same interview, Trump talked about, like I said, he mentioned the assistant, or I should say, Laura Ingraham mentioned the assistant secretary of state. But what about the secretary of state? Well, what about Rex Tillerson? Well, he suggested that Rex Tillerson also might be the next to go. He said, we'll see. I don't know who's going to be here for the duration. Okay, so again, that's a reference to Rex Tillerson. Oh, we don't know if he's going to be there, if he's going to stay or not. Well, you should know. At least you should have some idea who's going to run your State Department. He says he's going to stay. The only one who seems to not know is you. Look, do you think you're going to fire him? I don't know. Maybe he is. But you should know. Look, here's the thing about Trump. He doesn't care about running an effective State Department or even an effective government. All he cares about is himself. It's all about me. I'm the most important. I don't care about anyone else. That, I think, is probably the most honest thing that he's ever admitted. Okay. Short but sweet. Okay. Now, Special Counsel Robert Mueller might have a new target into the investigation into the Trump campaign's ties with Russia. Now, this target hits especially close to home. According to CNN, White House senior advisor Jared Kushner has now reportedly turned over documents to the special counsel Robert Mueller, as investigators have expressed interest in his role in the firing of James Comey as the FBI director. Now, Mueller's investigators have been asking in witness interviews about Kushner's role, sources told CNN. Meanwhile, sources close to the White House told CNN that based on their knowledge, Kushner is not a target of Mueller's investigation, and that Kushner voluntarily turned over the documents, which were similar to the ones he provided congressional investigators earlier this year. Now, do we know that for sure? That it was voluntary? I don't know. Mueller hasn't said anything. Obviously, he's not going to say anything. Kushner and Trump, they're obviously not going to say anything. He's not going to go out and say, I'm absolutely under investigation. And nobody does that. So we don't know, but we also don't know the specifics yet. That's fair. Only that he handed over certain documents. Now, what do those documents involve? I don't know. But apparently what they're looking at is what kind of involvement he had in the firing of James Comey. Now, the reason that that's important is because this could be considered obstruction of justice. And if you're an accessory to obstruction of justice, I imagine that you can get in trouble for that. In fact, that's the very thing that ultimately led Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein to appoint Mueller as the special counsel. Comey had originally been overseeing the Russia investigation at the FBI. Now, Trump, in his infinite wisdom, was like, I don't like what Comey's doing. I suddenly really, really hate Comey. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to fire him. Oh, you dumbass. You don't fire somebody who's investigating you. That actually makes you look more guilty. And so that, like I said, led to the eventual appointment of Robert Mueller, who is now apparently kicking your ass. Now, CNN's report also comes one day after Vanity Fair reported that Trump had also become very frustrated with Jared Kushner. Citing a source briefed on a Tuesday call between Trump and former White House chief strategist Steve Bannon, Vanity Fair's Gabriel Sherman reported that Trump blamed Kushner for his role in decisions, specifically the firings of Michael Flynn and James Comey. Here we go. Trump also told his longtime advisor, Roger Stone, that he agreed with Stone's assessment that Kushner was providing him bad political advice. Someone familiar with the conversation told Vanity Fair. Jared is, quote, the worst political advisor in the White House in modern history. This is Sam Nunberg, a former Trump campaign operative, also talking to Vanity Fair. I'm only saying publicly what everyone says behind the scenes at Fox News, in conservative media, and the Senate and Congress. Ooh, that's not looking good for Jared Kushner. You have all these different people talking smack about this guy behind his back. Like, oh, Kushner, terrible advice. Why would you ever listen to that guy? Well, you did appoint him as advisor. Just saying. So the question is Trump starting to turn on his own son-in-law? Look, he didn't seem to have a problem with Kushner's advice before, but suddenly now that Mueller's looking into him in his role in firing Comey, now, I don't know. We're looking at Trump now saying bad things about Kushner. Oh, he's with the terrible advice, and then he's starting to distance himself. Oh, boy. Now, look, I've talked about Kushner before. I've talked about Ivanka before. Why are they even there? I've asked this question, right? He's not qualified for anything. And in fact, from people who actually know him, he's an idiot. Now, you might have seen this story, this account from Harleen Kalon. Now, Harleen was a former employee of The Observer. Now, this was run by Jared Kushner. Now, she said, and I love this quote, he would compensate for his lack of knowledge by saying stuff like, let's just blow up the whole concept of digital. It would sort of sound interesting for a second, and then you would just forget about it, and then get on with the work. Again, Kushner right there, just from that quote alone, sounds a lot like something Donald Trump would say. No, we're just going to blow up digital. Really? What does that even mean? That doesn't mean anything. Now, she also added, like Trump, we're talking about a guy who isn't particularly bright or hardworking, doesn't actually know anything, has bought his way into everything ever with money he got from his criminal father, who is deeply insecure and obsessed with fame. You don't buy the NYO, marry Ivanka Trump, or constantly talk about the phone calls you get from celebrities if it's in your nature to shun the spotlight, and who is basically a shithead. God, that sounds like a mirror image of Donald Trump. Again, no wonder Ivanka Trump married him. I'm just saying, there's something weird going on there. But anyway, that's pretty clear. Now, what's also clear is that, like I said, Trump looking at Kushner going, oh, crap, he's a little too close. He's getting investigated, maybe by the FBI. We got to get out of here. Get him out of here. Get him out of here. Maybe. I don't know. It'd be a pretty big step. But the question is, how low can he go? I mean, I don't think he'd ever shiv his son-in-law. Or at least I didn't think. Now, I'm not so sure. But here we are. If there's a low, Donald Trump aims to go lower. There is no bottom to this barrel. That is the Trump administration. It's amazing. Okay. One more story for you guys. And then we'll head out of here for the night. Or for the weekend, I should say. Is Educary? Really? Is Education Secretary Betsy DeVos getting ready to call it quits? Now, Betsy DeVos, of course, you guys know, is one of the more controversial nominees to serve in government. Her vote was actually one of the only nominations that had to be broken by a tiebreaker from Mike Pence. So that's interesting. Now, during that whole nomination hearing, she was confronted by a lot of different Democrats. Bernie Sanders, for example. Bernie Sanders asked an interesting question. He's like, hey, you gave all this money to President Trump. during his election campaign. You backed him, and, you know, you gave all this money. Did you buy your seat? That's a very, very interesting question. And I think the answer to that, of course, is that, yes, she did buy her seat. She didn't have any experience. She doesn't know anything about education. So what makes her qualified? Well, it's because she had all the money. I think she gave somewhere around over $200 million. So, not only that, but like I said, she had a lot of pushback on her nomination simply because she was deeply unqualified for the job. She has no experience whatsoever. She never even went to public school. She has no idea what she's talking about. And of course, Al Franken had came out and publicly, famously grilled her about that during her nomination hearing, which revealed how little she actually knew about the very department that she was going to head. Now, that lack of knowledge and that lack of willingness to learn the job is now rebounding back on her. According to certain insiders, Betsy DeVos is not only one of the most ineffective people to ever hold a job, but that they're also saying that she is ready to leave. And because of that, they are planning for a post-DeVos landscape. Now, this is a recent article in Politico. And according to that, DeVos has found herself stymied by the bureaucratic restraints on her job. But that bringing about change in Washington, she says, requires time, patience, and government savvy. 3 things that she does not have. DeVos said Politico's Tim Alberta is on a, quote, religiously infused journey to reimagine the relationship between government, parents, teachers, and schools. Raw Story's David Ferguson furthermore writes, the secretary wants to allow parents more freedom to withdraw their children from public schools and enroll them in charter schools, religious schools, and private schools. Hey, look, as far as that vision goes, hey, man, look, if that's what you want, you want to put your kid in a private school, have at it. You want to put them in a charter school, knowing that they actually have worse outcomes when they go to a charter school, hey, man, fine, whatever. Now, the problem is that she wants taxpayer money to do it. That's the big problem. Now, one of the problems with implementing her plan, writes Ferguson, is that public schools receive very little of their funding from the federal government. Now, schools are unfortunately funded by local taxes. Now, that sets, of course, that sets up a bad system where only wealthy schools, or I should say only wealthier areas, have good schools. Poorer areas obviously have poorer schools. So that's something that needs to be fixed. But she's not looking to fix it that way. Instead, she's saying, well, what little federal money they have, I would like to rip away from them and direct it towards charter schools and religious schools. That's not good. Now, there's another thing that he says, Ferguson writes, is that her overall unpopularity and ineffectiveness is what's leading to the lack of implementation of her plan. He writes, her first budget proposal for the department, one which would have slashed funding from multiple school programs and reapportioned that money to DeVos's pet cause, school choice, had actually been rejected by Congress. That's a Republican Congress, by the way. Now, with her agenda on the rocks and morale at the education department cratering, some have predicted that DeVos may return to the private sector much sooner than she had planned. She can talk about bureaucracy and how constraining it is for her, but a Republican-controlled Congress just rejected her budget proposals. She can't fill her senior staff slots. Morale is terrible at the department. And I'll tell you, in Washington education circles, the conversation is already about the post-DeVos landscape, because the assumption is she won't stay long, and for my money, I don't think it would be a bad thing if she left. I think she's been probably one of the most ineffective people to ever hold a job. That is, of course, a quote from Thomas Tott of Future Ed, which is an education think tank affiliated with Georgetown. Now, to what he said, good riddance, man. Betsy DeVos is not somebody who actually cares about education. She doesn't care about your child's education. She doesn't care about setting them up for a successful career. No, what she's interested in is making money for charter schools. Charter schools are a big source of income for her. And the other thing she cares about, and she's basically admitted it before, is that she wants to brainwash your kids into fundamentalist Christianity. Oh, I'm on a mission from God to put God back into schools. That's what she wants to do. Look, I don't care if you're a Christian. I don't care if if your kids are Christian and you want them to get more Christian education. Look, all I care about is if people get a quality education. One that actually teaches them facts. Stuff that actually going to help them in life. There are Catholic schools that actually do great education and then teach theology and their Christian worldview alongside of it. Fine, as long as you teach facts. Facts actually matter. If you want to believe whatever you want to believe, that's fine. I don't care. Now, I also care about people who don't choose to go to charter schools having a good education as well. People that are still in the public system. I care about having enough funding for public schools. I'm not okay with private schools who are religious in nature taking public taxpayer money. That is a violation of the separation of church and state. That's a big problem. But see, Betsy DeVos is the opposite of those things. She wants public money to go into private schools. She wants education that is not quality, but that teaches you nothing more than religious dogma that doesn't actually help you land a good job in fields like the STEM field and doesn't actually help you get a leg up. You can't get a leg up in this economy if you don't actually understand and believe in basic facts and understanding. If you don't know how to critically think, then you're not going to get anywhere in today's high-tech economy. That's a problem. Betsy DeVos doesn't understand the problem because she doesn't care to understand the problem. She's been there for a very long time, nearly a year, and she still hasn't learned that, oh, right, it turns out that people actually have to know facts and that education is actually very important. But again, she's not there to learn. In fact, she got rid of standards that actually tried to help people who are disabled because she couldn't understand them herself. She's like, these are too complicated. Let's get rid of these guidelines. This is somebody who doesn't understand and doesn't want to understand. She's an ineffective fit for the education department. She should not be there. She is incredibly unqualified. And hopefully now that seems to be catching up to her. And hopefully, if this article is correct, then she'll be on her way out. And if that's true, Betsy, don't let the door hit you or the good Lord split you. Bye, Felicia. Okay. That's it. That's all I got for you today and this week. You guys are awesome. Thank you for watching. Love you guys. Thank you to the patrons, of course, who support us. Thanks again to Nicholas for the donation and the super chat. You're amazing. You're all awesome. And I thank you so much for watching the show and being a part of the show. So thank you. All right. I'm going to be out of here. Hopefully all of you have an amazing weekend. Love you guys. And we'll see you next week. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, TYT Nation.